When I was like in, I think, 7th grade, I could have been in 6th grade, I can't really remember. It was like my second girlfriend ever. I think her name was Erica, but I can't really remember now. It shows you how in love I was, right? But I was totally infatuated with this girl. And I was talking to her. That's what we used to do back in the day before there was text messaging, is we talked on the phone, right? I mean, nowadays I know kids that will like never ever call anyone. It's always a text. And if you call them, they're like, "What are you doing calling me? I don't even know what to do with this when I can actually hear your voice." But that's like what we used to do. Is we used to call and we talked on the phone for hours. You remember those days where you just had nothing to do, and so you just talk on the phone for hours and hours and hours. And that's what I was doing, and it was getting time to get ready for bed and do homework and all of that stuff. And so I was walking in the living room, my mother was in there, and I was like so infatuated with this girl. And I said, "All right, I love you, bye." And my mom goes, I see her go, she cringes, and I was like, "What? Did you just say that you love this girl?" And I hung up the phone, and I was like, "Yeah, what? You and Dad do it all the time, right? And I really like this girl." And my mom was like, No, you do not love this girl. You're probably just going to run her off by saying that." And I was like, "What? Well, I really like this person. How do you know if you really love someone?" And my mom said, now I'll never forget this. She said, "You really know when you love someone when doing nice things to them and making them happy is more important to you than how they make you feel." She said, "You really know that you love someone when doing nice things to them and making them happy is more important than the way that they make you feel." And I never forgot that. And I never told a girl that I loved her. And even my wife, that when we were dating, we didn't say "I love you" until we've been dating for about 2 years. So that message really sunk in. The message today, we talked about how love is patient. Last week, how we need patience, and that was a major part of love. Today we're going to talk about how love is kind. And you probably could have guessed this. Yes, love is kind. So kindness means to act benevolently on behalf of another. Basically, benevolently is a fancy way of saying to do nice things to people. Love does nice things for people. It helps people. It does nice things for them. And what my mom was telling me is that when you really love someone, being kind to them is very, very important when you want to love someone. And that's not just in a romantic relationship. It's in any kind of relationship. If you want to show love to someone, being kind to them is of the utmost importance. And when our marriages or like relationships get strained, what's the first thing that happens is we stop being kind to one another. And that's when the real problems start. When you stop feeling loved is when you stop feeling kind. Married couples forget to be kind to one another sometimes because they've been married for so long. It's just kind of like a procedural thing. Or if you've been friends for a really, really long time, sometimes you forget to be kind. Or maybe you forget to be kind to your family just because they're family, and that strains relationships. And so being kind is of the utmost importance. Acting benevolently on behalf of someone else or doing good for someone else. Interestingly enough, the word in Greek for to be kind is the word in Greek to be kind. Strong's definition says also it can define it as to be of use, to make yourself useful to somebody. Because almost all acts of kindness are something that somebody finds useful, that somebody finds good. Jesus, there's a story in John chapter 9 where Jesus and his disciples are walking into the temple. And back then, if you had some kind of disability, and at that time, sitting at the gate was this blind man, and there was no way for him to support himself other than begging, because he couldn't see, he couldn't work, and there was no disability back then. You didn't, or anything like that. So the only way that he could support himself was by begging. He's sitting at the gate of Jerusalem begging, and Jesus and his disciples, they walk by. And they just start walking by because there'd be beggars everywhere. You know? That's just the way it would have been back then, because every disabled person would have been begging. And so they're just walking by, and Jesus' disciples see that guy, and they want to use this as a teaching moment, and so they tug on Jesus' robe, and they say, "Hey, Jesus, whose sin made that man blind? Was it his sin or his parents' sin that made that man blind?" And Jesus says, "It's no one's sin that made this man blind. This man is blind so that the glory of God may be revealed in him." And then Jesus, this is weird, y'all, he spits on the ground and makes mud and rubs it on this guy's eyes. And then he's like, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam." And the guy goes and washes, and then he can see again. And everybody's like, "Hey, is that guy that was blind since he was born?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's me." And they're like, "No, you can't be that guy. He's been blind forever. And I know that guy. You're not him. Maybe you just look like him." And there's this whole back and forth, and then the Pharisees find out, and Jesus gets in a bunch of trouble just for doing this nice thing. But look at that story. There's this guy sitting there, and his disciples say, "Whose sin is that? Whose fault is that? It must be somebody's fault that this person's blind." And Jesus basically says, "It's nobody's fault. And why are we sitting here worrying about whose fault it is that this person needs something? Let's just help it." And that's what Jesus did. Have you ever thought about that? That's a random act of kindness. Everything that Jesus did, every healing, every time Jesus fed the poor, those are just acts of kindness. And we don't really think about Jesus in terms of kindness a lot of times, but Jesus' whole existence that we show in the gospel, all he did when he was on the earth was go around and do kind things for people. That's all he did. And he taught, and he was telling people things that would help them. He said, "Hey, don't judge each other and point fingers and stuff like that. And it'd be better if you don't. Don't worry about things. Everything's going to be okay." He's kind things. He healed people. Kind things, just random people he saw. "Hey, you're hurting, you're healed. Let me take care of that." Jesus was the embodiment of kindness. He spent his life going around and doing kind things to people. Remember last time we talked about, or a couple of times ago, we talked about how real love was ultimately revealed in God's act of self-giving. Remember John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that God gave God's only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not come into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world." Right? That whole act of self-giving was God's act, like a giant random act of kindness on God's part. That was just a kind act. And so Jesus embodies that in what he does. It's going around and being kind. Being kind. And sometimes we forget to be kind, don't we? Especially when we're really comfortable with someone, we forget to be kind. You know when we also forget to be kind? When people disagree with us, when they don't share our opinions, or we don't perceive them to be in the same group as us, we forget to be kind sometimes. We forget to be kind when we judge people. We say, "Well, that poor guy must be an alcoholic or a bum or a this or a drug addict or that, and so I don't have to be kind to him or her. That person must not have their life together to be in such a bad state. I don't have to be kind to that person. That person is my enemy. I don't have to be kind to them." But remember, Jesus said, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." And if love is kind, that also means be kind to your enemies. The Bible says, "Be kind to your enemies, because in so doing you will heap hot coals upon their head." It's really a reference to the head of a fire of coals is when you would use them to mold metal. And with the head, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and you can throw metal in it and melt it. Melt the metal out of the ore. So metal starts as a rock, and you get it really hot, and you throw the rock in there, and it melts all the metal out of the gold out. And so basically the Bible says, "Be kind to your enemies, and in so doing, you will bring the best out in them." That's another way to say that. Kindness is so important. And we're selective about our kindness sometimes, because we give a kindness to those who deserve, or we're kind when we feel like it. But what Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians and what Jesus showed is that we are to be kind to everyone. Not just those who think we deserve it, not just to those who agree with us, not just to those who are in our little groups, not just to those who are in our family, not just to those who are in a relationship with. We are called to be kind to everyone. And that plays into evangelism too, because evangelism is about like sharing our faith. And I've seen so many colossal failures of evangelism over my course of being a minister, where people will go and they just try to tell you about Jesus, like, hey, you need to love Jesus. And people say, why? That doesn't make any sense to me. Well, because you're going to go to hell if you do it. Oh, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That seems pretty harsh. I don't want to judge that. I don't want to love that guy. He kind of seems like a jerk. But if you're randomly going over and painting someone's house, during camp, we're painting somebody's house, and he says, why are you doing that? Because of Jesus? Oh, Jesus says randomly paint people's houses? Well, no, but he says to be nice to people, and we thought that'd be a nice thing to do. And then they think, oh, well, Jesus is a pretty nice guy. I can get down with that. I might decide to follow him. Pretty nice. So I always say you should never do any kind of evangelism or mission work if it doesn't, if there's not some kind of kindness that goes along with it. If there's not some kind of other incentive that helps people or makes them see, oh, God really is a God of love. When we were in Kansas City for the General Assembly, I guess this was in like 1999. We were in General Assembly, and this is where all the disciples get together. And I was a teenager at the time, and one of the things we were going to do there is all the youth at the General Assembly were going to spend our time in mission work. That's what we were going to do. And Kansas City had this thing where they were going to clean up Kansas City. So it was an incentive when we went to some of the poorer neighborhoods in Kansas City and just clean stuff up, just clean junk up. If there was junk, if there were people that needed like their houses scraped or painted, we were going to do that. And so we spent like this whole week down there just cleaning stuff up. And the city had taken all these dumpsters out there to help us throw things away. So we helped people clean out their houses and help people do things like that. And so during the course of that time, there was this one older woman who had a washing machine that didn't work anymore. And she was like, I need to get rid of this, but I don't have any, males in my family that can help me like carry this. I don't know what to do. She's been sitting here for years. And it literally it was like from the 70s. Like it's been sitting there for God knows how long. And so I was like, okay, we'll get this. So one of my friends and I would get it out the door, and he had to go help somebody else. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this thing? I was like, well, it has this plug, and it was like one of those plugs from the 1970s. I mean, it was a hardy plug, it was almost like an extension cord coming out of the back of it. So I haul it over my thing, and I'm dragging a washing machine down the street. And it makes the most god-awful noise. It's like, it's just like scraping and sparks are coming out, and I'm just dragging it, trying to get it through. And during my dragging this and making this awful noise, this lady comes out of her house, and she goes, what are you doing? Well, I'm dragging this washing machine to throw it away. And she says, why are you doing that? And I said, well, I'm from with this group of Christians, and we're cleaning the place up. And she goes, you're cleaning the place up? Why? And I was like, because of Jesus. And she said, well, can you help us? And I said, maybe. What do you got? So I dropped the washing machine there, and go. And in this lady's backyard, I don't know if it was I think it was just part of her property, but for whatever reason, everyone had decided that was the dump, that they were just going to dump. I mean, it was knee-deep in garbage and just junk. Just stacked in this lady's house. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this by myself. So as we were dragging the washing machine back, we gathered everyone we saw. And eventually our whole crew that was down there on the street in Kansas City, the whole crew was dedicated to cleaning up that one yard. In about 5 or 6 hours, that yard was spotless. That yard was spotless. Many hands make light work, right? And the lady came out and she started crying. And we were like, why are you crying? And she said, the city had called me and kept asking me to get rid of this stuff, and we had been cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, and we couldn't get it. And the city said that they were going to evict us in 2 days if we didn't get it cleaned up. And then you just all happened to come along. Random acts of kindness go a long, long way. One act of kindness, you never know, could change someone's life. And if that weren't an incentive for you enough, did you know that psychologists now have determined in their studies that your circumstances only have 10% to do with whether or not you are happy? Did you know that? 10% to do with whether or not you're happy. The other 90% of your happiness is entirely dependent on the way that you interpret what happens to you. And one of the things that they say that you can do to fix your interpretation of events to make yourself more happy, there are 7 things. One of them on the top of the list is random acts of kindness. Being kind actually makes you happy. Do you know that? Whether you are kind to somebody you love or just kind to a random stranger, you may give $1 or $2 to the homeless person. You may go donate canned food to the food shelter, to the food bank. You may go help paint a house. You may go clean up trash in your neighbor's yard or mow somebody's yard. Or even something as small as getting out your phone or your tablet or your computer or whatever that fancy gadget you have and just sending an email to someone and saying, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. I really think you're great. Just wanted to let you know. Random acts of kindness make you happy. It makes you more happy. And I think, of course, God made us, so God knows this. Being happy, that being kind makes us happy. And so all the things God is saying is, look, love is kind. I want you to help each other out, because isn't that the kind of world you want to live in, where everybody's doing acts of kindness to one another? I love it when people do acts of kindness to me. And so I want to do acts of kindness to other people. So what if we lived in a world where everyone was being kind to each other all the time? Sounds like a pretty nice place. Sounds like a pretty nice place to me. And so God knew that, and God prescribed that as part of the program. God showed that in Jesus Christ. Love is kind. So let's be kind to one another, whether we like each other or not. Let's be kind to one another, whether we agree with one another or not. Let's be kind to one another so we can be happy. Let's be kind to one another because love is kind. Let's be kind to one another, if for no other reason than God asks us to. So let's